Did you know you can learn to be creative? Did you know that maybe being cool and artsy and like sounding really good, just making up music, is not just some muse, dropped from the heavens gift? It can be, but ultimately, I honestly think that part is overplayed. And in reality, creativity is a combination of taking patterns that you see all around you and applying them to music. Whoa, you sound so good, bro. I know I do. It's just because I'm super cool. No, it's not. It's because you have so much vocabulary and language to choose from. Let me get into this, but let me introduce myself and what we're talking about. I'm Robert Monroe, and this video is called Nobody Teaches This, and it is about how creativity is something that can be learned, not always necessarily something that you were born with. Now, what do I mean by this? Think about us talking right now. I'm talking to you, but probably some point today you've already talked to somebody, or maybe you've just been sitting on YouTube, you just woke up. Hey, wonderful. Then you've heard other people talk. Talking is happening all the time, right, in your day. Here's the thing about talking. Every sentence you construct is a new creation. Did you think about that? I mean, of course, some of them have happened before. I mean, almost every sentence I have spoken already has probably happened close to it, but exactly? Nope, hasn't happened. So what are we actually doing that's so creative? How can ChatGPT make something that's like, sounds so much like a human, right? Well, it comes from this idea, which is you take patterns, and we know some patterns are better than other patterns, and are more pleasing to us, right? And then we just take all of those patterns and we jumble them into an order that makes us happy, that communicates what we're trying to communicate. How does that apply to music? Well, let me show the most simple way. Let's imagine you just learn baby's first major scale, C major, right? Your teacher says, hey, play C major a billion times, and then we're going to learn Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. And that's what they tell you to do. And you're like, but I want to make up music. Why don't you teach me how to make up music? And if you have a good teacher, they're going to explain this to you. But to be honest, most teachers won't. And they'll be like, hush. You don't know what you're talking about. You got to get way creative and like be in the muse and be in the moment. And in reality, who knows? You may not even have talent for it. And like, I don't know how to improvise. I've never improvised. I just know how to play all these classical songs and all this vocabulary, but I never talk. That's the problem. There's two problems here. The first that I just mentioned is never trying. The second is vocabulary. So let's go back to that baby's first scale, right? That's vocabulary right there. You just need to know how to use it. Well, how do you use the C major scale? Well, you can start breaking it up because it's like learning the full alphabet. If you learn the full alphabet all at once, it's overwhelming and you're not going to get very far. But let's say you just take 3 notes. Okay, let's just do those by themselves. All right, I could do that for a lot longer, and you're starting to see, wow, just in those 3 notes, there are options, there are ideas, there are things going on there. Now, how about the next 3 notes? Oh, they're almost the same as those 3. I wonder if I do a little back and forth. Same pattern up here. Down, skip, and then back up. And then maybe I go up to C. Whoa, we just wrote a song. How in the world did that work? Well, all we were doing was taking what we learned, the C major scale, and then breaking it up into little tiny parts, more digestible little chunks, practicing that, and then putting it together. Oh, but you also learned Twinkle Twinkle Little Star? Oh, we learned chords. Okay, how about we apply that with what we learned over here? Whoa! Now we've harmonized our song. That's pretty sweet. Okay, what about Twinkle Twinkle? What do we learn there? Oh, we go up by a big jump, and then we turn back around, and then walk, step down with some repetition. Let's mess around with that. Ooh, that's kind of fun. And again, everything I'm playing right now sounds like instantly pretty good. Why does it sound instantly pretty good? Because I've been doing this for a really long time. If you have not, it's okay for it to sound awful. You might sit down and be like, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Just because you're trying to be creative doesn't mean everything is going to be a home run. You're going to have a lot of misses, and there's nothing wrong with that. Actually, there's a lot to learn from the misses. I love the sentiment. I've heard it from many different sources. I know it's in Effortless Mastery, which is a great book, but it comes from a lot of different places where they say, hey, you feeling stuck? You don't want to improvise. You don't want to try stuff out. You don't want to be creative. Just make a bad piece, right? Just play poorly. Just like, suck. And what you'll notice is it's really hard, actually. If you're trying to set out to make something that sounds bad, it almost ends up always sounding good. There's a certain paradoxical relationship to quality. If you want something to sound really good, you might end up with something that doesn't sound very good. But if you want something to sound bad, you almost always end up with something with at least a little bit of value, a little bit of interest. This is not the whole story, though. Because if this was the whole story, we would just all be little Mozarts just like jamming out and just sounding amazing all the time, right? But that's not what you have. You mostly have a ton of musicians and people who have learned music that are super terrified of improv, super terrified of being creative, and they're just kind of stuck playing the same classical songs or pop songs that they've always known. That is because they never practice improvisation. I made a video about this already, but in the context of this Nobody Teaches This video, I wanted to discuss just a little bit, a couple ways that you could get into practicing improv. The first is over a song you already know. So you could start with Twinkle Twinkle, right? And then keep the chords the same, and then mess around. And a couple things to note. Notes that go together, go together. Notes that don't go together, don't go together. This is another thing that I actually need to make another video about, which is nobody teaches that the reflexive property may literally be the most important concept in all of music. And that reflexive property is just A equals A. The same thing is the same thing. So if you play a C in your left hand and you play a C in your right hand, they go together. If you play a C in your left hand but you play a B in your right hand, they don't go together. And that tension and then leading to a release is always going to give you that forward momentum necessary to really push you to the next thing. All right, so what have we really discussed? The main thing we've really discussed is nobody teaches you that being creative, making up music, being able to be comfortable, just experimenting is not a talent-based thing most of the time. And again, I'm probably going to have somebody whine at me, be like, hey, I know my buddy, and he just sits down since he was 2 years old. He just sits down at the piano and makes up stuff. That's wonderful. People like that exist. Don't get me wrong. But I will say, I was not one of those. I started reading music only. I did not know how to play by ear. I never played music outside of the context of sheet music. But over many, many years of trial and error, I have gotten to the point where my favorite way to play music is just to sit down and see what comes out. been waiting for a reason or an excuse to just let your creativity run wild and try stuff, even if you don't feel like you're that creative of a person, this is the wake-up call. Go out there, mess around on the piano, come back to me, tell me it didn't work, tell me that you just suck and you're not very good at it. Yeah, because you probably aren't very good at it, and just give it some time. That's okay. I've been Robert Monroe. This has been a video on improv and creativity. Hope you enjoyed it. Like, subscribe, comment. Thank you so much. Until next time.